do not know what to say. Hi guys, I'm Amy and welcome to my channel. I'm basically going to be explaining my cancer journey. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself. So my name's Amy, I'm 15 and yeah, that's about it. In 2018 in August I think, I was diagnosed with osteosarcoma, which is a rare type of bone cancer. I didn't expect it to be that, obviously, so I just started getting pains in my left knee and I just thought it was like growing pains or I sprained it. Wasn't really worried about it that much until it started giving way and I couldn't like walk properly, I couldn't walk down the stairs. It was just really weak and I couldn't bend it loads and stuff like that. I was at a friend's house and we were having like all a big like friends sleepover thing, and it was really bad that day. And after, when I went home, I said in the car home, I said I think I need to go to A&E about my leg, like it really doesn't, it's hurting. So my mum and dad took me to A&E. They examined it and they were like, we'll do an x-ray just in case. The x-ray, they didn't notice anything to start with and they just said that it was a sprain, go home and do these exercises. I was like, okay then. Like I was expecting it to be like maybe a sprain, a fracture, a muscle like ligament like snapped or something like that. The next day, this is where it all started. So the next day we got a phone call from the like, I don't know what it is, like the radiology like A&E department, and they basically said that the radiologists, like the professional radiologists, had a look at my scan and something's not right with my knee. They said that I needed an emergency MRI the next day. I think it was the next day or it was the next day after that. So it was very quick, but my symptoms were quite long until I went to A&E. They basically said on the phone that they don't know what it is, but something's there that shouldn't be. So obviously, panic mode, I was like, oh my god, what is it? Ooh. But cancer never crossed my mind, like it just never did. And then so I had the MRI. I don't like MRIs. I am very claustrophobic. I hate them so much. They're just not my thing. So I had that. I did it because you have no other choice. You sort of just have to do it. So did that. It was alright, and then we had a meeting with a consultant and she basically said to us that it's either a bone infection or it's a tumour. So they didn't know if it was a benign tumour, if it was a cancerous tumour, if it was just a bone infection, if it was like sepsis infection. They didn't know what it was, so they said that I would have to have a biopsy. Now because it was right inside the bone and like went straight through, the biopsy wasn't easy, so I had to go under anaesthetic and they basically cut open a bit of my knee, took some of the bone out, and then they sent it off to the lab. So I had that done. That was in August, and then in September the results came back and we sat down with my now consultant oncologist and he basically said that it is a rare form of bone cancer called osteosarcoma. Something just knew that I could tell that it wasn't good. Like all these signs were showing about like cancer, and I was going through Instagram and like all these things about cancer and stuff like that was popping up, and I was like, this can't just be like there, like I've never seen stuff like that all before. So I kind of took that as a sign and I was like, obviously isn't good, but I still didn't expect it to be cancer, because you just don't, like, it's not one of them things that you think that you're gonna get. Like, never in my life did I think I would get this, especially the type that I had. So osteosarcoma is basically a form of bone cancer. It's usually a tumour, and it affects not many people. It is rare, like rare. So yeah, that's a bit about it. Like, I should really have more information about it, but I don't. Yeah, and he basically explained to me my treatment plan, my surgeries and all that. So I then, within so in September, I then had my ovary taken out, because obviously chemo affects your ovaries. Okay, sorry about that. My memory card just was full, so I had to delete loads of footage. So as I was saying, they took my ovary out, and because obviously chemo affects your ovaries, so then in the future I can have it put back in and I can potentially have children. Yeah, so I had that done in that September, so I had the choice to do that, so I didn't have to, but obviously it was just a little operation. You just go through your belly button, do a keyhole surgery. So yep. And then I had my Hickman line put in. So if you don't know what a Hickman line is, it's a small little tube, but I mean like really small, like a wire looking tube, and it goes in through your collarbone into your heart, or sort of like in around the heart, then it goes out of your side. So usually it either comes out here or here. Sorry, I've got a stain on my top. Lovely. And yeah, and it basically have like 2 lumens which come out, and you can take blood from it. The chemo goes in it, you can put fluids in it. It's basically like a permanent cannula that's more effective and less painful. Like, it's just there. So I had that put in, and that was a very easy surgery, you know. I did go on anaesthetic, but I had that put in when I had my ovary taken out, so it was sort of like same anaesthetic. It wasn't any more risks than it would be. October the 4th, 2018. And on October the 4th, I had my first chemo cycle. So I was on a chemo called methotrexate, doxorubicin and cisplatin, and they are very horrible chemos. The side effects are one of the worst, but you sort of just get used to it, sort of, which I know sounds very not good, but you do just get used to it. So I had my doxorubicin and cisplatin, so that was over 2 days, but you have fluids with it, but like regular fluids. It's like drinking 2 cans of Coke every 3 hours, just like consistent, so you're peeing a lot. So I had that first chemo, and it was alright. Obviously it hit me, and it wasn't something that I would ever want to do. And a week later I had a temperature, and because my blood counts went really low, and that was my first time I was neutropenic. So neutropenic is neutropenic is basically where you've got no neutrophils, so they can't fight off infection, so you don't have any white blood cells, I think it is. I think they're the ones that do it. And then when I got back home, my hair started falling out, and so my hair started falling out. I just chucked it in a bun and forgot about it. Then about 3 days later it was completely matted, so I had no other choice but to shave it off. So I did that, and I cried a lot because I had long brown hair, and it was sort of just took away like my comfort blanket. So after I lost my hair, that was the point where I realised this is what it is. Like, it hit me, and I was like, shit. Like, I actually do have cancer. I had more chemos, more neutropenic stays in the hospital. I was in hospital more I was out of hospital in the whole 8 months of this treatment. Then halfway through your treatment, or like a quarter way through your treatment, you have your big surgery. So basically my tumour was on my left femur, above the knee. So what they do is, it's called limb salvage surgery usually, or it's called endoprosthesis surgery. Basically they take the bone, like a good chunk of the bone. So say the tumour's that, they'll take like a good margin like that either side, so they have no traces of it left. They take that out, like literally saw it out, yeah I know, and then they replace it with metal. So I have a total knee replacement, total thigh replacement, femur replacement, and I still have my kneecap though, and I have some of my shin taken off, so it's all metal. So I had that surgery January 2019. The surgery was hard, but it was also a step closer to where I wanted to be. So I had loads of physio to try and walk, to try and rebuild the strength, but I hadn't walked all through since my biopsy, because they said if I walked on it and put my weight on it, it would snap, because the tumour was so straight through the bone, covered the bone, but it was capsulized, so it was like stuck to it. I still couldn't walk, and I was still in my wheelchair a lot of the time because chemo took a lot of energy out of me. After that surgery you usually wait, I think it's like 4 weeks maybe, and then you go back onto chemo. But I stopped the really bad chemo, the cisplatin, and I just had doxorubicin and methotrexate. So I carried that on until the end of the treatment. When I finished, it was a relief. I was like, oh my god, finally. Really bad mouth ulcers all through my treatment. They were like all over my mouth, down my throat, in my stomach. So that was one of the main reasons why I was in the hospital all the time, because my neutrophils were took up by trying to what's the word, fix my mouth ulcers. So that's where a lot of my white blood cells went. So the reason why you get mouth ulcers is because chemo attacks fast growing cells. So I finished treatment, that was good. I didn't make a big fuss out of it because I'm someone who is very positive, but I'm also realistic, and I knew that anything could happen and this may have not been my last chemo. So I just took it and I was like, alright, last chemo, but obviously I'm going to be realistic and things can happen. Osteosarcoma likes to go to the lungs, and that's where if you relapse it will go to the lungs. I've always had nodules on my lungs, but they've never grew, they've never turned into anything. But after my chemo stopped, I had my first CT scan, which was on my chest. So CT scan's a bit like an MRI, it's like really quick, it's like 5 minutes at the most. You go in it, out, it scans your lungs. I had that and it showed that one of the nodules had got bigger, so it went from about, I'm going to say 2mm to about 5mm or 6mm, which is very small, but it's also, the protocol is if something grows, get it out straight away because you don't want it to lead to anything else. So had that operation, so that was my first relapse. That operation, they basically did a keyhole, which I'm glad because it's less painful. So they go in and they take the nodule out of your lung, but they have to collapse your lung first. So I had that operation, I had a drain with it, which was horrible. It gets pulled out when you're awake, which do not recommend. And then my next CT scan after that showed another nodule on the other side of the lung, on this side, got bigger, and this one was about 1.5 centimeters big, which was a lot bigger than what it was last time. Couldn't be done keyhole, so they did a slice on my back and they went in with their hands and felt around all the lung to make sure they could get any nodules out if they could feel it, So that surgery went well. They took all that out. I had another drain, which they take out when you're awake, which was painful but not as bad because the surgeon did it because he knew how anxious I was about it, and I had gas and air. So I had that operation, and that was in November 2019. And last month I had my recent CT scan, and it showed again 2 of the nodules in my lung have got bigger, another 2 have popped up, and another one has stayed the same, but they are very small. They are like 1-2 millimeters big, which is so probably not even one of these circles. It's probably smaller than one of these circles, which is, which is amazing, and I'm glad that they haven't grew quick. But so I don't need an operation at the moment, but eventually if they start growing more I will need an operation again, which is not ideal. That is where I am at so far, and this is a wig, but my hair is probably about down to here, which I'm grateful for, and I'm glad that I do have hair now. But I also love wearing my wigs because you gotta feel girly. I don't really know what else to say apart from cancer is a fucking bitch. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you even see it, I might look back at this video and be like, no one gives a shit.